Welcome to Pop Culture Addicts. Our guest today is an accomplished actor. When I say accomplished, I mean like over 400 credits on IMDb. Get you exhausted, trying to scroll down the list. Exhausted, accomplished actor. So you've seen our guest today in movies like Joe Dirt, Office Space. You've probably seen him on several variations of Star Trek, including Voyager and Next Generation. You may have even heard him doing some voice work on The Legend of Korra. Without a doubt, I am pleased and honored to welcome Richard Riehle to Pop Culture Addicts. Welcome to the show, Richard.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Tim's excited. I'm giddy. It's just...
Let's do this.
Right? I'm trying to contain the giggling.
That's right. You've been in some really cool stuff. As I scrolled down, one of the biggest things, and Kathleen and I talk about this often with guests, one of the coolest things for us is to go through when we book somebody and there's the excitement of, oh man, we're going to talk to this person, because I reached out to you because I had a memory of you for one thing in particular. And, it's always fun for us after we get over the excitement of, holy cow, he's going to do the show. Oh my God. And we start going through the list of everything you've been on. We start going, oh, I didn't know they were in that. Oh, I didn't know he was in that too. Holy cow. Did you know he was in this? And then we're shooting messages back and forth to each other in excitement of all the things that you've done. So my first recollection of you and why originally I had reached out is because I'm a big fan of the movie Office Space.
Oh, yes.
And I love your character, Tom Symkowski. I'm a people person. That whole thing kills me. I just absolutely love that. Having worked in an office in a cubicle, that spoke to me on more levels than I would like to admit.
Well, Mike too, that he wrote what he knew. That was his job after college.
Yeah, it's very obvious that somebody who worked in an office setting, was hitting the keys on that story. I recognized you first from that, and it made me wonder, as I was going through your list and I was seeing all these other things that you have been a part of in the recording and arts industry for these so long. Is that the piece of your work that people recognize you the most for? Or is there something else when you're walking on the street or you're at a restaurant or something and people go, oh my God, it's the guy from The Thing, and they point at you?
Well, when I was right after Grounded for Life, the series that I did, I was in New York doing a play, and I would notice that people were, yammering around me. Most of them didn't, stop me, but they, and so I would listen carefully. And I did a sort of a non-scientific survey for about a week, and about 50 to 60% were Office Space. About another 20% were Grounded for Life. And then it became very strange. It would be about 10% would be whatever was on cheap cable that week. And then another 10% were people saying, oh, that's the guy that runs the bodega that we go to all the time. Or that was my sixth grade teacher or something like that. But yeah, Office Space seems to be the one that most people gravitate to. And what's interesting is people are still, even looking like I do now, people were still recognizing me from Office Space.
Oh, I believe it. I believe it. That movie has hit cult classic level where it's recognized by so many and it's appreciated by so many, not only because it's of the writing, but the acting of everybody that was in the movie. And then I think some people get a kick out of it just because they realize who wrote it and directed it. And they're like, oh yeah, the Beavis and Butthead guy. And it's a completely different thing than what they expected. And I think that draws them in.
Well, a number of people that, especially people that had done voices in Beavis and Butthead, gave him grief the first week of shooting, saying we are not cartoons. You've got to treat us like real people. But that was not the case at all. He totally realized that, and in fact, that's why he did his character on the first day. So we all had a sense of what he was going for in terms of tone and style in the film. He took a long time casting it too. I went in 3 times. The first time I went in for the psychiatrist and for Tom, and then he said, "Okay, we'll forget about the psychiatrist. Let's read." So I read Tom 2 more times, and then he contacted the people when he finally casted and said, "Look, we're going to go to Austin. It's my hometown. There aren't going to be a lot of suits looking over our shoulder. We'll work hard, but I'll take you to all the best places to eat and all the clubs where my band used to play, and we'll have a great time. And we did. We were there for 29 days, and we all stayed together in the same hotel, and we were together all the time. It was amazing, and we had a great time. Couldn't have been a better experience.
I'm sure. And I think sometimes when a cast has an experience like that, I really do believe it comes across in the final product. And you can really tell that the cast enjoyed making that movie. It's just,
oh yeah,
it's in the whole sense of the movie and how it's put together and how everybody comes across on screen. Sometimes you can tell when people are just there for the paycheck, and then sometimes when they are really there because they're enjoying what they're doing in the moment. And I really got the sense of that watching that movie, and I've always appreciated that movie, and that was one of the reasons why.
Well, and enjoying the people that you're with. I mean, enjoying spending all that time together. I mean, it's not like you do a scene and everybody would go off. You do a scene and everybody would sit around and talk about the next, whatever they felt like. It was really terrific. And but what you're saying about being a cult classic, I think it was the 10th anniversary of Office Space. Entertainment Weekly did an issue on cult movies, mm-hmm. and the 50 best cult movies. And so I just picked and they didn't give anything away on the cover. So I was looking through 50s, 40s, 30s, 20s. Let's got to be in the top 10 someplace. Went through the top 10. Never mentioned. I said, this is ridiculous. Turn the page. And they said, and then a class by itself, Office Space.
There you go. Absolutely. Yeah, that's recognition well deserved.
That is definitely. And I think it's funny too, going from, you were saying that the majority of people recognize you from Office Space, and then after that it's Grounded for Life, which is where I come in with it's Grandpa Finnerty. Because I love that show. I still watch that show. Like I've watched the whole series through multiple times. I love your character in that show. He is so much fun. I think he's the grandpa that everybody kind of wanted. Like the no nonsense, but also still fun. Like I loved that balance in your character. And you were in about half of the episodes of that series.
Right. They changed it about halfway through. When we first started it, it was shot 3 days of single camera on whatever locations they wanted, and then when they first approached Donald and Kevin, they said, "Look, we're going to be doing little independent films, half-hour films every week," and that was the idea. And then they, and then before they shot the first episode, they were told they needed to do at least a certain amount of it in front of a live audience. That was part of the Carsey Warner thing, which was great because it had that kind of energy, and a live audience always does help. And so it became 3 days of single camera and 2 days of in front of a live audience. The problem is that it was like doing 2 episodes every week instead of 1, and people were just getting exhausted.
Right.
So the second year they said, okay, we're only going to do 2 days of single camera, and then we're going to do a 3-day run on a live audience show, and that worked. That worked a little bit better. But then there was a question whether Fox was going to keep the show or not for the 3rd season, and so what they did was they said, okay, we've got to find a work location for Kevin and Donald's and Megan's characters, mm-hmm. that we can take them home and work. And that sort of meant that Grandpa wasn't as necessary.
Which is sad.
Well, the thing was that they halfway through they started shooting that way, and halfway through Fox said, okay, I think we aren't going to do this anymore. And WB wanted it really bad. Mm-hmm. So they said, oh, we'll take it. But Fox then said, oh, you can have it, but you can't use any of the episodes that we've shot so far this year. So suddenly we were shooting madly trying to get enough to do to show on the WB, and then the final season it was all pedestal cameras, and and it became just this. It became a regular sitcom again, and I think that's where it began losing some of its audience.
Which is sad, because it was a lot of fun. It was a fun show.
It was great fun, and
hilarious.
But the thing is that the writing when they said we're doing little independent films every week was really incredible, and then they said when they did the first hybrid, it was still really, really good. But then when they said, okay, we're doing this, we're going to have them buy a bar, and somebody said, well, the kids can't be in the bar. And, there were a lot of questions about it, and some of the writers then moved on to other things, and it just slowly, I don't know, it was still, the energy and the excitement was always there. I always look forward to the episodes that I got a chance to do. I mean, I was very excited when they said, yeah, we're going to keep you on as a recurring character, because I really wanted to see those guys every week, or as much as I could. But I don't know. It just and what was really strange was that everybody went on and did other things, and they could easily have stayed together and been a slightly different story of.
Right. One of the things that I liked the most about it was that it was such a realistic family. It wasn't your typical traditional sitcom family. It was your troubled teenage daughter and your butt heads of younger brothers, but then you had the weird uncle and the grandpa, and you had that real family dynamic, which I enjoyed watching, because it made more sense to me than the traditional two kids, mom works from home or mom's at home, that traditional family, that cookie cutter family. This family made more sense.
Yeah.
But you said that you liked being brought on as a recurring character because you enjoyed seeing the other cast. So with that longer recurring role, do you get that sense of family, especially when you're cast as a family?
Well, yes. I mean, as a family, you certainly do. And we had 2 years of being together every episode as a family. So there was that excitement, and they would bring people on. I mean, it was always who was going to be this year's boyfriend for Lily, and they were great young actors. It was fun working with them as well.
That's so cool. I need to go watch that show again.
Yeah, it's been a little bit since I've seen that show, but I do remember that's where I was introduced to Donald, and I always thought he was a really good actor. From that point, moving on, and then when he came to Gotham, I was very excited because I remembered him from that show and went, "Oh man!"
Wow!
Again, that's probably the reaction you get when people see you from Office Space. It's that one guy from that one show, and I got to go look up the name of that show, but I really liked him, and it was the one with the family and the kids. And
well, that's my problem too. Unfortunately, sometimes I have to look up the name of the shows because they keep changing them on me.
I get that.
Excellent. Well, Richard, one of the things that we love doing when we talk to our guests is we love stories, and we love backgrounds and learning about the backgrounds of the people that we're interviewing. And it's not so much for us, we could sit and talk about the shows that you've been on all day, and we could ask scene by scene cut downs and all these other things, but we try not to ask those questions. But what we like to find out about is kind of, the background of the story of our guest, where they come from, what they've done, and what kind of got them into where they're at and why they do it. So in your case, what were the influences of you or on you as a young man that made you want to become an actor and reach out for the arts?
None. It's a very roundabout story.
Interesting. Okay.
I was a jock all through high school. I wanted to go to Notre Dame to play football, which obviously I wouldn't make. Although I did do the knock your head against the wall 95 freshmen trying out for the freshman team, and and that was just interesting. But and then I I switched. Went in as an engineering major and immediately flunked organic chemistry and got a D in calculus. I had no idea what I was doing, but it seemed like everybody was in engineering then. And so then, but I was taking a 5-credit German course, and as part of the engineering program, and was acing it. And the head of the department was teaching the course. He said, "Are you in our sophomore year abroad program? We've got a program in Innsbruck, Austria." I said, "No, but I could be." He said, "Well, you're a German major, aren't you?" I said, "I sure, why not?" And so I became a German major and spent a year and a half in Salzburg, Innsbruck, worked on a small farm in Breitenfeld during the summer, and then traveled all around Europe. I would never have had that experience otherwise. I mean, I came from a small town in Wisconsin,
Sure.
where the biggest thing was getting together to work the harvest, with whoever had the closest farm, and
Sure.
and so I came back from that and realized that being a German major was not going to do me any good, so I became an English major, which was all right. I mean, it was just a lot of reading, and I like to read, but I wasn't kind of getting excited about it in any way. And here I was, a junior in college. I figured something should be grabbing me. And there was a great books class that we all had to take, and for some bizarre reason, one of the books was the film Marat Sade. They had everybody go see the film Marat Sade. And so we came into the seminar, and the guy who was running the seminar was late. And so everybody's kind of, bullshitting around, waiting for him to show up. And so I got up on his desk and said, "Well, why don't we have a revolution?" And so we did. And he came in and he sort of made us keep going. But that was the first kind of real experience I had doing theater of any kind.
Okay.
And one of the guys I had gone to Innsbruck with was in the theater department, and he said, "Well, you ought to come out for a tryout for the play." So I did, and it was a musical, and I guess I sang good enough to get in the chorus. So and I thought this was fun. And Notre Dame at that time was all male school, and they were bringing in girls from St. Mary's College and et cetera to play doing the plays, and so that was exciting in and of itself. And so I did that, and then I graduated and with a degree in speech and drama, which I knew would do me no good whatsoever. So I went back to Wisconsin, and I graduated in January because I couldn't afford another full year of school. And I started unloading railroad ties, which had been my summer job. But unloading railroad ties in Wisconsin in the winter is a whole different story.
That sounds awful.
Yeah, you got to take a pickaxe to each tie and break them apart. I was looking in the papers. You look for an indoor job, and they were looking for a stage management intern at the Milwaukee Rep. So I went down there and I applied, and they said, "Well, this job is really not available. We're just trying to, but we do need somebody that can. We're doing this big project right now. Would you be interested in working on that?" I said, "Is it indoors?" They said yes. I said fine, and I was able to pick up, because I was working backstage. I got to know the Yahtzee guys, and I was able to pick up some odd jobs, loading and unloading trucks coming in from the big house where they brought in touring shows. And I remember we had built this machine, this contraption, Rube Goldberg contraption, for this play, The Prince of Presymania, that they had hired me on for. And then they had cut the scene, and it was a huge contraption. They wanted to get rid of it, so they said, "See if you can get it on one of these trucks." And so it took 3 tries, but eventually got it on one of the trucks from Fiddler, and the next stop was Corpus Christi, Texas. I don't know how far it went beyond that, but they unloaded this machine at Corpus Christi, Texas.
Oh my God.
And the guys that ran the theater department at Notre Dame felt bad that I just sort of left in the middle of the year without any, and so one of them had just graduated from University of Minnesota, and he got me in there on a work study fellowship, working in the scene shop. So I was doing that and having a great time, and they needed somebody for this play that one of the graduate students had written, and it was called Bang Bang You're Dead, and it was sort of a version of One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. It was about a alcoholic DI from the Korean War who was in this hospital, VA hospital in Great Lakes, and was was trying to make his life more comfortable there, and by doing so was making things rougher for everybody else. And the head nurse who was trying to keep him in line. And so the difference was that at the end he gets killed, the head nurse, as opposed to getting a lobotomy. So I did that play, and somebody said, "Are you in the acting department?" I said, "No, I work in the scene shop." They said, "Well, why don't you should try out for the plays here?" And suddenly I was doing all these plays at the University of Minnesota, and it was great. And then they put me up for McKnight Fellowship at the Guthrie, and I did some work at the Guthrie. And then the guy who was my faculty advisor worked half the year at the Meadowbrook Theater in Michigan, and said, "Why don't you come here, and I'm sure we can put a season together for you there." And I was doing this stuff that was totally unexpected, and I thought, well, this is crazy, but I'll keep doing it until somebody tells me, okay, move on, you don't belong here. And so far I haven't got that notice. So
still waiting, huh?
Yeah.
All right,
so I got into this business.
That's awesome, though.
That's interesting. That's really cool. I love roundabout answers. That's really cool. So I have to ask you one part about this, because I'm going to beat Kathleen to it, because she's the musical person here. I am not. I don't like musicals, but she, however, adores them. So what musical were you a part of, and what song did you sing that's kickstarted this whole thing?
Well, I don't remember what song I sang. And the musical was, and I'm going to forget the title. It's How to Succeed in Business Without Really Trying.
Ooh, that's a good one.
It is a good one. I ended up playing one of the executives. Mm-hmm. So I got to sing "I Believe in You," and there's a lot of good numbers. The Fellowship of Man, and
Fellowship of Man is a great song. It's
a great number. Yeah.
I will take your word for it.
Yeah.
Just listen to that one, Tim. It'll be okay. It's not going to kill you to listen to songs from musicals.
Well, you don't know that. You can't prove it. So.
He is so anti-musical. It's not even funny. It's ridiculous.
A little bit.
I've gotten him to watch one musical.
And it was scary every time they made me. Every time I auditioned for them. I've only probably done 6 or 7 musicals, mainly because it's the singing part that it's the singing part of the audition that always screws me up.
Oh yeah. It's nerve-wracking when you're suddenly put on the spot and you're supposed to sing, and it's I know how to do this, but now you're watching me, and now I'm suddenly incredibly uncomfortable.
I was doing Guys and Dolls as part of the Encore series at City Center in New York, mm-hmm. And the woman who was directing it was going to direct Kiss Me Kate, and also in New York, and she said, "Well, you should come and audition for one of the gangsters in Kiss Me Kate."
Yeah. And
I said, "Okay." And they said, "Do you have any music?" And I said, "No, we'll just sing, something from Guys and Dolls." And I said, "Okay." And it was terrible. And she was, she was sitting right there, and smiling and nodding, and I was going, "This is terrible. I don't want to do this. Let me go home."
Oh, I agree. Musical auditions are the worst. I grew up in a musical family. My grandma was an opera singer. My parents met doing community theater. I was in choir. I was in a stage production in high school. And the musical part of any interview is always the worst. Yeah. Always. I don't know why. It just is. It's like, I know everything else. I've memorized all of these lines. I know the entire song, but then suddenly, hey, we need you to sing the song. And it's the what?
Well, and even, and accompanists are great. I mean, they're incredible and they're terrific how they do it. But they start and they may be just a slightly faster tempo or slower tempo than you've been practicing. Everything, and everything is there to throw you.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah, so Tim and I actually host another podcast together as well, along with another one of our friends. His name is Nick. It's the Funny Science Fiction podcast. And recently we talked to Francois Chow, who appeared in the cutscenes for the video game Wing Commander 4 with Mark Hamill,
my gosh,
as you did as well.
Yeah.
So just like we asked Francois on the other show, do you have any fond memories of playing Chief Technician Robert Pliers Sykes? And do any of those involve an on-set lightsaber duel with Mark Hamill?
No, I did not have a lightsaber. It was a great experience, and it was totally foreign, which is always exciting. You go into something, you have no idea what it's going to be like. The sets we worked on half sets. They would build the half of the set, and the other half would be a green screen, and so you never knew where you were going to be, who you're going to be talking to, where you're going to be looking, and then everything shifted. I mean, you do these sort of short scenes, and then you do the an option, the A and the B versions, and then they decided that Pliers should be an icon, and so I spent one day just doing do you want to do this or do you want to do that? To as a camera rolled by. Mark was great. Right? He was so terrific, and the scenes I had with him were amazing. But it was the middle of the OJ trial, and he was totally a fanatic about it. And so he would literally when they said, okay, it's going to be half an hour, he'd run back to his dressing room to watch it live, even though he was taping it at home and was going to watch the whole thing later that night. The other thing was, and I found this out later, is that and I can't think of his name. The guy that plays his sidekick, the other wing commander, the other fighter pilot. Doesn't matter. The point is that the players, for some reason, didn't like him, and so once they worked their way through the game, they would go back and sabotage him so that he got killed earlier on.
Oh, that's funny.
Oh, I understand that feeling though with characters in video games where you just don't like them. I've been there.
Well, yeah, if there's ways to work around it, I've never really thought about sabotaging one to kill them, but I have worked my way around it, so I didn't have to deal with a certain character as often in different games. But I can't say that I disapprove of that approach. I mean, it gets them out of the game completely.
I think it's a pretty great option. I
think it's funny.
One of my most frustrating things with one of the games that I enjoy is that you'll have characters who are plot characters, and so you can't get rid of them because you need them for the plot later on. It's like, but this is the most annoying character. I just want them to go away, and you can't. Like it doesn't happen because in one of the potentials of the storyline, you might need them, so You can't kill them off. It's like. But I know I'm not going to go that way with the story. Why can't I just get rid of her?
Right. And if I remember correctly, when we talked with Francois about this, I believe that this was one of the early inceptions of green screen and how it was being used. And so that's what kind of made it a little more difficult. Yeah,
it was also the first video game shot on film. And so there was a lot of firsts. They were discovering stuff all the time when we were shooting, which was kind of exciting too.
Yeah, it's interesting.
Cool.
All right. Well, at the outset, I listed a whole handful of movies and TV shows that you had been a part of. Kathleen's talked about a couple of them as well. And one of the cool things about going through your resume, shall we say, on IMDb is that you seem to not have a type, so to speak. And that's, I think, one of the great things is that you have roles all over the place,
Yeah, I've always tried not to. I mean, I spent 15, 16 years doing regional theater and another 7 or 8 in New York. And before I got into film and TV really full time, and or more or less full time, and always that was the thing. Between each, I would try and look and act different in every one, and then some times I would be doing rep, and so I'd be doing 3 or 4 different characters in a season, and we constantly shifting one to the other. So that's always been part of the excitement, is to try on all these different characters.
Well, I'd say you nailed it. So with all these credits, you've had chances at some very memorable characters, and there's a lot of with your work that that you should be proud of, and I hope that you are, because we've very much enjoyed your work thus far. But I'm wondering, with everything that you've done, all the characters that you've played, do you have, the white whale out there, so to speak? This is the dream role that I would like to have. And at some point I would love to have, whether it's a major role or a small role, a supporting role, whatever it may be. Is there a role out there for you that you're still waiting to be able to sink your teeth into?
The next one.
Great answer. Okay.
Yeah. But that's the thing. You get, I'm reading a script now. And it's a wonderful script, and it's based on this woman's family, of immigrants in Oneida, New York, at the turn of the century, and there's a character, a smallish character in it that they suggested, if I read it and like it, that they might want to use me for it. Now, going into it, I knew nothing about it, and now I'm obsessed. Oh, this is the best character. All these opportunities, all these things, because you get that way. You begin, you start working on a character, and you find all of these things, and it makes you really, really want to do it. And so that's the hardest thing when things get postponed, or when they decide to go another way, or whatever. And so far I've been fortunate. I've got a chance to do a lot of things. For a while it was to do a lead in a play, and I was doing the sheriff in The Ransom of Red Chief, a TV movie years ago, and I was having a great time, and I was and I was having lunch with some of the crew, and chatting about things. And this one head gaffer was saying, I've got an idea for a movie that I want to do sometime. Can I send it to you? I said, yeah, please do. And so 3 or 4 years later, I get this call from North Carolina, and he's doing this. He's fine. He's finished the script, and he's got some time, and he's got some money, and he wants to do it. And so he said, I want you to do that role, and I got to be involved in every part of the process from beginning to end, and was shooting every day, all day, and it was really exciting, and so I got that one checked off.
Yeah.
There you go. Cool.
So sort of on the same brainwave as Tim, asking, you have a fair amount of experience in the entertainment industry, big screen, small screen, vocal booths, computer screens even. So for the new or aspiring actor who might be inspired by you, what advice would you give them? And what do you know now that you wish you had known when you were starting out?
I think the main thing is don't give up. If you have to do it, do it, and do whatever it takes to make it happen. The other thing is the old improv thing. Say yes to everything. Mm-hmm. And I find myself doing that. There's been maybe a handful of roles or opportunities that I've had that I've said no to for whatever reason, timing or the project seem I can't find what the purpose of the project is or something, but otherwise it's always yes, there's something I know I'm going to find something that excites me about this, and I'm going to pursue it. And on weekends, while I was doing this mini series for Apple. I did two proof of concept.
Okay.
You do, and the other one was a spec pilot, and we did them for nothing. I mean, and we had to cram them into 2 days of shooting, and but it was worth it because there was the characters were interesting, the ideas were interesting, the people that I got to work with, and it's more than willing to give up whatever like 2 days of rest to do something like that before and that's the thing. I think you have to just keep finding projects that they'll do it. And if you're a writer, that's the other thing. And more and more people are discovering that's how they can get into this business. Is write something for themselves.
Excellent.
Oh.
All right. So, go ahead.
No, that's definitely good advice. Like, especially the say yes to things. Like, people are going to stop asking you if you keep saying no. If you want to keep moving, you have to keep saying yes.
Yeah. Absolutely. I agree.
I love it.
All right. Excellent. All right. So, Richard, we have one final question for you, and we like to call it our silly question. So here we go. You can answer this as serious or as silly as you'd like. It's up to you.
Okay.
So if someone were to come and give you $75,000 to launch a business, what kind of business would you start other than a business for jump to conclusion mats?
There was I did this horror movie. I can't remember what it was called now, but they started shooting it right after Office Space came out, and the crew made a jump to conclusion mat about the movie and gave it to me. I
that's
don't know
awesome.
if you know it, but the actual jump to conclusion mat has been lost. No one has any idea
Really?
where it is.
Oh,
No kidding.
Yeah,
Oh.
including Mike.
I figured that was in Mike Judge's home somewhere. That's what
Yeah, but evidently it's not. Evidently it disappeared somewhere.
Interesting.
So yeah, so it's one step beyond a non-fungible token, I guess.
oh goodness.
That's funny. It's probably a Lumberg. So, all right.
Oh, Richard, thank you so much for being on the show with us today. We have really enjoyed talking to you. Where can our viewers and our listeners go to find out more about your work and what you've got coming?
Oh gosh, good luck. I'm not on any social media.
I don't blame you.
So I guess IMDb is probably a good start. Right now, there's a movie called Moon Manor, which tiny little project that these two women had put together, and along with the guy that plays the lead, Jimmy, and it's about a guy who's slipping into dementia, and before he loses all ability to know what's going on around him, he wants to have a funeral, not a funeral, but a funeral, and with everybody that he knows, and to get together and have a party. And he's got a death doula that at the end of the party is going to take him to the next level, the next step. And so really, it's a lovely piece.
Awesome. I will definitely be looking out for that one.
Yeah.
Sounds good. All right, guys, we also want to remind you that subscribing is the single most important thing that you can do to help our show continue to grow. So there's that little subscribe button down there. You'll see the little animation pop up for it. So please do that. It helps us be able to get more amazing guests like Richard Riehle here today to have these great conversations and hear the stories about what they've done in their career over the years and help us out in our pop culture world. And so remember, kids, pop culture, it's all around you. It influences every single aspect of our lives. So be sure to come back next week because we'll have your fix waiting right here for you on Pop Culture Addicts.
Thanks again, Richard.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for listening, everybody. Goodbye.
Copyright 2024 FSF Podcast. Reference to any specific product or entity mentioned on this podcast does not constitute an endorsement or recommendation by FSF Podcast. The views expressed by guests are their own, and their appearance on the program does not imply an endorsement of them or any entity they represent. If you have any questions about this disclaimer, please contact us via email at info@fsfpodcast.com.